Hello, I'm Michael, and this is Tarot by the Tree. Today we're going to look at what the cards do not mean. And I find that interesting. There was a show on TV a while ago about mothers, and they're going to motherhood classes with their children, and they were told that they would never use the N word or the C word in front of their children. And there was some humorous discussion about what the N word and the C word were. And it comes out that the N word is no and the C word is can't. And I bring that up just to say that there is sort of an inherent prejudice against negativity today, to the point where a lot of people don't like to discuss that. I have a friend who would tell me if I mentioned any kind of upcoming danger, calamity, she would say, don't think about it. You're giving more energy to it, and it is more likely to occur. And I just found that a very strange way of looking at things. We talked today about different types of people, and I think we're often too quick to say that a pessimist is bad and an optimist is good. We can say that a negative attitude is bad and a positive attitude is good. Why choose one polarity? And that's what we're going to get into today, that perhaps part of society has an unconscious prejudice against negativity. And even when I say it, it sounds like, well, we all should have that, but no, we really shouldn't. Why should we choose one polarity over the other? In a magnet or a battery, one polarity is superior to the other. We don't choose one terminal of the battery and ignore the other. They work in conjunction. Mercy and severity are both equally bad, but we need them both. Just like in a battery, we need both polarities. We define by what it is and what it isn't. For instance, gravity is a force that cannot be seen. I haven't really said anything negative. A bicycle is a wheeled form of transportation that doesn't have a motor or an engine. I think that just helps us define a bicycle. Mars does not have a breathable atmosphere. We are defining by what it does not have. And this is an important and very necessary thing to quickly get an idea of what it is that we're describing. We'll just leave this for just a moment and move on to one other idea before we get back into the idea of balance, is that tarot cards, in my opinion, were not meant to tell fortunes. And as we've discussed in many videos before, they were made to teach the tree of life and the tree of knowledge. If we want to tell a fortune, we don't need to take 78 hand-painted cards to do it. We can use a set of dice. We can use a crystal ball. We can use the tea leaves left in the bottom of a cup. And if all that is not available, we can use the person's palm and we can palm read. Telling fortunes does not need a very involved set of tools. But today we are talking about fortune telling. We are talking about using the tarot cards for fortune telling, for telling people what their future might be like, or looking a little deeper into some of the things that motivate them or some of their fears. Today we're looking at what the cards are and what they aren't. And in order to do that, we're going to be looking at the two pillars of the cards, severity and mercy. We've mentioned this before. Severity is clean or restrict. That's what it means. Mercy means grow or include. Like all things, these are positive attributes. In moderation or in context. When taken too far, they become negative. This is the source of all negativity, is going too far towards mercy or too far towards severity. I'm going to look at the cards now. We'll just lay them down, and this is like a reminder of how the system works. The Fool floats, and as we've done many times before, we put the numbered cards onto the numbered sephira of the Tree of Life. The numbers 1 to 10 take the cards 1 to 10. The secret to the system that eluded people for hundreds of years and led them to stress the pathways, I think, was the frustration in trying to find how the cards lay on the Tree of Life, and even the idea that the Tree of Knowledge existed. And it says in the Bible that it did. But the trick is the 11th card, which is the scales that suspends, that goes up top. Now the next 10 cards follow in order. And this is the way the cards would be used to teach the Kabbalistic practical knowledge of the Tree of Life and the Tree of Knowledge. We're going to take a look today specifically at what a card is not. And we'll start now. I'm going to start with the very top card, the Magician. I will reveal the meaning of the card and how it relates to the aspirant. And we always do that with a set of 3 cards, a 3-card vertical spread. And that's what we're going to use today to give an idea of how the cards might be read. Let's take a look. Here's one possible set of cards describing a person. Strength, temperance, and the sun. And if we look at this set of cards, we might get a feeling. And we're going to look a little bit into the intuitive aspect of cards and how it can mislead you. At the same time, we're looking into how the cards are always defined by their attributes rather than what they are not supposed to be representing. If we look at this card, we might think that we're looking at a kind of a pleasant person, a gentle person. If we look at another card, another set of 3 cards, a vertical spread, and we see this, and I say, wow, the Magician, all things possible, the Ace of Wands, the beginning of plans, the Moon, and we might come up with an intuitive reading of that could be between good and bad, and we might get another vertical 3-card spread of these 3 cards. We might think, oh, that's pretty ominous. The Death card, the Devil card, the Emperor. This, at the very least, looks threatening, and maybe it's dangerous. Those are sort of our intuitive responses to that, and they are not entirely accurate. I'm just going to look for a little bit of accuracy here. Let's start at the top. Okay, saying what a card isn't a negative thing. It further defines. Okay, we'll start with Keter. If Keter is represented by the Magician, which he is, and the Magician card turns up, it may be tempting to say the Magician, the highest card, it's the God card. But we're going to talk about what the Magician is not. And this is what it is. The Magician is not in reality. The things he does are ideas, they're concept, they have not materialized yet. If the Magician is describing a person, it's describing a person's potential, not what they've done. The Magician is a bunch of stuff that doesn't exist yet, but it might. That's what the Magician is not. Let's move down. We come to the High Priestess. This is where everything explodes into the universe, including balance and polarity. We have the differentiation of the sexes of male and female. We have severity and mercy. We have the imagination. What isn't the High Priestess? It seems at first reading, she's everything, but she isn't. What the High Priestess is not is selection or guarding against something or even saving somebody from a problem. That's not part of this card. The High Priestess allows everything. There is no judgment. There is no reckoning of good and bad. The High Priestess does not select, does not judge, does not decide who is worthy and who isn't. All are welcome with the High Priestess. We get to the Empress, which is often called the Universal Mother. We may see a very gentle person, and we may infer from this, because she's gentle, that she's welcoming, that she's kind. That's not what she is. She does not welcome all. She is on the side of severity. She takes raw materials and turns it into life, and she can only do that by having a kind of a crucible where she can keep out all bad influence, any germs, bacteria, unwanted entities. The Empress is not welcoming everything. In fact, what the Empress does is guard against things entering her arena. The Empress is at the very top of the pillar of severity. And although she may look kind and welcoming, she isn't. She is creating and she is keeping out unwanted entities. We move to Hesed, or the Emperor card. We see a person that looks like a mighty guardian king on a stone throne. He's fully armored. He's got ram's heads on the throne. But we have to remember that this is also, and this is mainly, the benevolent king. He is on the side of mercy. This emperor does not have anything at all to do with removing people, oppressing people. Like the High Priestess, the emperor welcomes all, and people who meet this man adore him. This is not a person who is going to be mean or even very good at limiting the number that come into the kingdom. We'll move now to the Hierophant. The Hierophant chooses people, is on the side of severity, and again, will not welcome all. This is a selection process that people have to be introduced and have to live the life between the two pillars. When we move down to the Lovers, we can see that in a way the Lovers involves all four suits: plans, joy, money, and power. But in a sense, these must all be compromised, because with this Lover's card, you are going to be sharing everything about you with somebody else. The Lover's card suggests that all other things you do will have an aspect of compromise to them. You will now be sharing, you will now be altering your plans, and you will be at times having to include the plans of somebody else. Netzach the Chariot, on the side of mercy, unites two things together. He is on, I call it a free ride. He is not a helper. He is not a savior. He is a traveler who is interested in keeping his intellect and his emotions together. What he is not is any kind of a wild card. Was that an Omix? Oh, yeah. What is strength? Strength is a card that looks like it's a gentle woman, perhaps warning a lion not to bite her or something like that. What we see with strength is not exactly that. The other side of strength is the sun, and we see a similar depiction of innocence. When we look at the card number 8, Hod, strength, it is on the side of severity. To use sort of an instinctive feeling and to say, well, maybe she's being kind, we have to remember she's on the side of severity. She is not kind. She is subduing the lion because it serves her better to have a lion on the outskirts of her kingdom. She could kill the lion and she would have no problem doing that because she is a severe entity. To suggest that she is kind and compassionate and welcoming would be altogether wrong. When we get to the hermit, we get to a point of not being accepted as you are. The hermit is not a sanctuary. The hermit demands change. He is seeking patience and obedience. This is not a welcoming vacation. This is a very small doorway. And finally, the Wheel of Fortune. The Wheel of Fortune is not about rejecting anyone. This is a card of innocence and beginning. There's also a card of the imagination playing tricks on you. We're going to look at the minor cards and how they work. I think we'll do that as a separate lesson, but just as a very brief reminder, all the 1 cards participate in the Sephirah 1. 2 cards and 2. There's a lesson for each of these cards. The lesson at the top, we have the Magician and the Hangman, is that to be wise, to be at the Godhead of society, so to speak, at times that will be recognized and your ideas will be the plan of society. At other times, you will be demonized. You will be wise, but it won't be recognized. The lesson as we move down to number 2 is that life begins with a wild expulsion of all kinds of things, and the labels of good and bad just don't apply. The other side of the 2s is that death is an element of life. All we know right now, all science knows about life right now, is that it is only comes into existence from previous life. And as to how the first life occurred, we just simply don't know that right now. And the lessons continue. As we look at the 4 cards, the lesson is great power and adulation can lead to a kind of conceit that infects the mind and makes you think you're greater than you are. In the 5s, we see that the wise people teach knowledge, but the ultimate knowledge is the top of the tower being blown off. You have to leave the institution to gain the full knowledge. The Lovers, at first we see it's the love between 2 people. The highest form of love is giving with no hope of receiving anything. When we moved to Netzach, we talked a bit about him, the chariot, the linking of his imagination and intellect. We see in the moon card what happens if those things are left unchecked. The imagination will dominate the intellect, and you will start to be a little bit deluded, a little bit paranoid. Strength, we've talked a bit about that. True strength does not advertise, warn, it has no bravado. It exists in complete confidence. The hermit that you thought was a single light beckoning you is in reality judgment, which is an awakening of humanity. And finally, the two cards that start the two journeys that are so similar, the Wheel of Fortune, where the creatures are winged and they seem mysterious to the world, where you now have a wreath around you, which is a symbol of past accomplishments, and the animals have reverted to their natural state. All right. Okay, I think this maybe will give you an idea of embracing the idea of what a card is not. It helps clarify people's ideas. We have started with the magician. You can tell people that this represents all the possibility of all things. You can then follow it by saying it also describes things that are not in existence yet. This is a card of potential. Okay, we're going to take a look. I hope this clears it up a little bit about some cards, about some vertical 3-card spread. So let's say that somebody had come down, and these are the 3 cards that are describing them. And you might say nice things. You might say, well, all kinds of things are possible. You are now beginning your plans, and your imagination is going to help you. And that would be very positive, but it wouldn't be very accurate because we've ignored what the cards are not. Now let's look at it another way. A person, I'm going to give you a view into their personality from this vertical 3-card spread. You are full of ideas and potential. Anything is possible with you. You seem to have all the attributes necessary. However, these are not in existence yet. You might say these reside in you as ideas or compulsions. Your life is not manifesting at this moment. We see the Ace of Wands. That's the beginning of plans. Some plan you have has the potential to grow now. It is the very beginning of plans, which of course are mostly ideas. Finally, we have the Moon card, which suggests that your intellect and imagination have parted company. Your intellect is no longer informed by your imagination is no longer informed by your intellect. Your intellect is now guided by your imagination, and you are beginning to see lurking enemies, and the world is not what it seems to you. It is a form of mental illness, a kind of a madness. A way of looking at this spread would suggest a person who can do things but isn't doing things right now, and part of the problem may be that they are living in their imagination. So hopefully you can see that a spread that may look very benign by basing it only on its attributes, if you take a look at what the card is not, it sometimes lines up, and it may give you an impression of a person. This person is someone who needs to do things and not just come up with ideas.
So when you're saying your imagination, what exactly, could you elaborate on what your imagination is?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I really didn't prepare for this. And it's one of those things that may be a little bit tricky because they're both coming out of your mind. to me, your intellect is what can be proven. And even that's difficult. Apparently, there's no proof the sun will come up tomorrow. It's just because it always does. So I can't prove the sun will come up, but I do feel fairly locked into logic and knowledge when I say that the sun will come up tomorrow. If I say the sun is a fiery chariot pulled by a god, that's really imaginative. There's no way I can prove it, and there's no validation. So to me, intellect is something that is logical, and imagination is something that cannot be verified. And I'm sure you can poke a hole in that somehow.
Well, imagine when you say imagination, it conjures up your fantasy. But imagine in the context that you're using it in, I'm thinking in terms of your feelings, like that kind of thing comes in your feelings.
You're right. And even if you're designing something or building something, your imagination may be the source of your future development. So I don't mean to say imagination is less than intellect. Intellect won't guide you to as many problematic areas as imagination will.
Intellect, though, relies on accurate information.
It does.
And certainly we're seeing that scientific proof isn't so scientific when it involves vested interests.
I know, and you see that all the time. I come to you and say, "Oh, Jocelyn," and it turns out it wasn't true. We're seeing stuff that parades as intellect that really is imagination. I know.
Proof.
So we're going to look at another one now. As I've always said, intuition, imagination, they're great things as long as you have the base of knowledge behind it. We look at this set of cards. Again, imagine this is a 3-card vertical spread, and a person draws these 3 cards. You might be tempted to say, you're a kind and gentle person. You're like an angel. You can influence materials and liquids. You are an innocent, childlike human being who is dedicated to growth and development. These things may be sort of something that you might say just from looking at these cards from your intuition. But let's take another look at these cards. Strength and the sun, to show up in one reading, very interesting. These are the 2 cards that define strength, absolute strength. These both come up. These are both on the side of severity. This is followed by the Temperance card, which is also on the side of severity. All 3 of these cards are severe. None of these 3 cards are going to be merciful or grow cards. These are restrictive cards. The pictures don't show it at first, but when you understand that the sun is the source of all the power, and the child who seems to be innocent is actually the source of all life, and she rides death's horse. This kind of misleading picture, although it's intentionally misleading, it describes strength as something that doesn't have to advertise.
Card.
Down more flat? Okay. Okay. And in Temperance, we also have the other side of objects and producing life. In Temperance, we have the aspect of alchemy, which is taking materials and change them at the molecular level. This card that may look gentle and kind is not. All 3 cards are from the side of severity, and all 3 cards are intolerant do not welcome all, and they are in their heart restrictive cards that are not allowing outside influences to spoil what they have. All right, I hope that's a little bit clear. We're going to do one last one now, just to take. This was, you can see 3 cards that look friendly and nice. And although they may be friendly and nice, they are not weak, they are not inclusive, they are not necessarily welcoming to everyone. These are not pushover cards. Not that any of them are, I suppose. Let's take a look at this set of cards. Again, a vertical 3-card spread. Let's say that you were reading the cards for somebody and you laid these 3 cards down. There might be a feeling of fear and worry and apprehension. We've got the Emperor, who is the king of all kings. We've got the Devil card, and because of our language, it's got all kinds of connotations, mostly from Christianity. And we have the Death card, which also, outside of the tarot cards and Kabbalah, may have kind of a negative image. These 3 cards together may seem like a kind of a dismal depiction of somebody, but we can look at it a little deeper. And again, the whole point of today's study is that, as much as possible, keep in mind which side of the tree they are on. Is it on the side of cleanse or the side of growth, severity, or mercy? These may all look worrisome, troublesome, terrible, but let's look at them. They're all on the side of mercy. All 3 of these cards are about growth and inclusion. The Emperor is the benevolent king. He welcomes everybody. He wants to take care of everybody. There is no danger in this card. His armor is such that he cannot be hurt. There is no point in assailing him, and yet he carries no offensive weapons. The Devil card is the other side of the Emperor. If people adore you for too long, that adoration becomes symbiotic. You need it, and they need it, and then they convince you you are even greater than you are, which convinces them, and it goes on in a cycle. The other side of the Emperor is somebody who loves being adored. That's not dangerous, it's not evil, but that's what the Devil card represents. And we have talked several times, this is not the devil from the Christian Bible, from the New Testament. This is more akin to the idea before Christianity of being bedeviled or devilish. And this is a very minor evil card that talks about people's indulgence more than an otherworldly fearsome force. And finally, the Death card. As we talked about this a bit before. It's Kumamatara. It's the idea that all life only forms on the ashes of old life. It takes life to make life, and how the first life evolved, we just don't know. As dismal as these 3 cards might look, these 3 cards are good. This is protection and welcoming. This is the love of being adored, and this is the place where new life occurs. All that to say, the images on the cards are not the whole story. They're accurate, but they just don't tell everything. And sometimes when you see a card and you think that must be a very gentle and welcoming person, be aware it's on the side of severity. It's taking raw materials and coming up with a totally new form of existence that hadn't existed before. And she does this by withdrawing and restricting. Why don't we look at some of the questions, Joss?
Are you saying that every card has a negative side? Isn't that just like reverse meaning?
I can see that somebody might say that, and I hope at this point the whole thing isn't starting to look too complex, because the Tarot by the Tree system is very simple, but we're digging in a little bit deeply now. The cards don't have a negative side. We don't use reversed card meanings. If a card ever shows up reversed, what we say is the meaning of this card is not present in today's reading for you. Rather than the idea that the cards have a negative side, it's more about there are some things absent in some cards, or the cards are not concerned with certain things. And I think that's more accurate. It's not like there's a negative side to the cards. It's more like there's a does not apply side to the cards. There are some things the card is just neutral on rather than against.
How can severity and mercy, or clean and grow, be good things and bad things at the same time?
Yeah, and that's a bit of a conceptual thing, because a lot of Western teaching is not about balance, it's about extreme. For instance, if your little girl is good at soccer, maybe the Western way would be to get her on every soccer team, get her private lessons, and all through school aim at a professional or semi-professional soccer career. That would sort of be the Western way of taking anything that shows promise to the extreme. The Kabbalistic way is about balance, and it's the middle path. So if your little girl was really good in hockey, you would, of course, encourage that and praise her, but that's the physical aspect of her. You would also now double up, how's the intellectual side? How's the emotional side? And how's the social side? You would work for balance. You do not want a little girl consigning her whole life to the 1 in 1,000 chance of playing professional soccer. You would look to balance instead. So all things exist on a balance. And I know this is a problem for some people. One person disagreed with this because they didn't really like the idea that love existed on a continuum. And they told me love is always good. I said, well, what about when somebody loves someone so much they get so possessive and jealous? They say, well, that's not love. Okay, well, what about somebody who just loves someone so much they pay an inordinate amount of attention to them and take about, well, that's not, well, I disagree with that. All things, even love, exist on a continuum, and it can be between severity and mercy.
And love can also, you could see love is letting the person be the person they are, as opposed to what you want them to be, what love represents to you.
Wow, yeah, I think that's crucial. That's perfect. Yep. Yeah, all things exist on a continuum, even love, even water can be life-saving or life-taking. Everything exists on a continuum, and as far as I know, there are no exceptions.
Does everything exist? Okay, I think you've
Yes, everything.
Between extreme severity and extreme mercy.
Yes.
Do we always aim for the middle path between severity, clean, and mercy, grow?
Okay, that's a really good question. We've talked about the middle path of mildness, balance, and that's what we should strive for. There are times when we can't be on the middle path, and we shouldn't be on the middle path, and that's for corrective measures. There are times when you may be in a situation of too much severity, and you may have to go to an extreme, merciful position to counterbalance that. There are times when we do have to go way to one side in order to balance a situation. So, no, we should, yes, we should strive to exist on the middle path, but it is not an ironclad rule because we all have to sometimes take corrective measures for our life when we are confronted by something. And sometimes we may have to go to one extreme in order to achieve balance again.
Where the thing about anger, that sometimes it serves you well, often it doesn't, but there are times when it is purposeful.
Wow, that's a touchy one. And we've said all along that anger is probably the biggest problem in the world. It's the source of hatred and all kinds of things.
Well, but anger, not physical, like
Just the feeling?
enacting it, but also to maybe someone is taking advantage and you correct them, like that kind of anger.
Perfect example where normally you wouldn't show anger to the person, you wouldn't be that severe. But in this case, they have to know that your limit's been reached and they have to understand what your answer is. And so, in that case, at times we do, with some kind of knowledge and understanding, have to go to an extreme. And that's it. I hope that cleared up a little bit about the two pillars and the idea that everything in life should be considered by what it is and by what it isn't. Thanks. We'll see you next week.